In today's video, we'll talk about the indexOf array method, and I'm sure everybody knows about this method, but I'm going to also touch on alternatives and a few less known features of this array method. So let's start. First, we can create an array. So just let array equals, let's just add some numbers here, 3, 7, 10, and 9, for example. And what we want is to actually get the index of whatever number is in here. So for example, we can say array.indexOf, and let's say index of 7, right? And if we try to print this on the screen and run this, of course, you'll notice I get 1. That's because, well, index of the element 7 inside our array is 1, right? 3 is at index 0. Yes, we'll see right now, right? So that works. What if we add here a number that doesn't work, for example, 11? Well, you'll get -1. So you can check if an element exists in array or not using the indexOf array method, which is kind of nice. You can just say if indexOf is not -1, then means that it exists, right? So I can say this is going to return false. And if I change this to a 10, which we know it does exist, that's going to return true. Now, if you want to actually check whether or not an element exists inside an array, I suggest you use the includes array method, which you can check up top. But basically, how to use this is to just replace this with includes, and that's just going to return true or false. So you no longer have to check if it's -1 or not, and it's going to return the same result as previously with the comparison to true or false. Now, similarly to the includes array method, indexOf also has a second parameter that you can pass in to tell it from where to start looking. This can drastically improve performance, so make sure you actually add it if you really need to. So for example, I can specify here, start to search for the index of 10 from the index 2. And what's this going to return? Notice it's going to return the index 2 because 10 is at index 2. But if I change this to a 7, for example, you'll notice I get -1 because it's not found from index 2 and onwards. And of course, if I change this to a 1, it's going to return index is 1 because the index of 7 is again 1, and we're starting from, well, 7 to start to search for it. So an interesting and less known feature with the indexOf second parameter is that it can take negative numbers. And what does that mean? If we pass in, for example, -3, what does that do? So if I run this, you'll notice I still get the index of 7. If I pass in a negative number, it's going to say, all right, so you're going to search for the index of 7 from the third last element of the list, right? So it's going -1. If we specify here -1, it's going to start searching from here. If we specify here -2, it's going to start searching from here. If we specify -3, it's going to start searching from here. So if I specify here -2, you'll notice I'm going to get -1, right? Because -2 is technically, if I specify -2, that will be translated to length plus -2, which is, in our case, is 4 -2, which is 2. So it's the same as specifying the index 2. Now, if you want to find the actual index of an array of objects, it's a bit more complicated. So here I have an array of objects, and every single object has the property name and the test, right? So if I specify here, for example, I want the index of the object that has the name test2. So that should return to me 1, right? So if I try to do this now, you'll notice I get -1. That means that it didn't find it inside the array. But why is that? Well, that has to do with the way it's comparing every single element to this element. Basically, in the specifications, it says that indexOf is actually comparing every single element using the triple or the strict equals operator, which actually you can check a comparison between the strict equals and loose equals operators up top. So basically what it does is it really just provides these checks for every single element inside the array and returns the actual index of it. But as you might know, equality between objects is only going to be true if that is exactly the same object, as in the exact same reference, right? if we create here another, this is different object, right? This is a completely different object than this one, right? Because they are in a different place in memory. They both have been instantiated. If we, for example, specify the second element inside our array, then we're gonna get this one, and it's going to be compared using the strict equals operator with itself, and it's going to return true. And then we're actually going to get the index of that, but that's redundant because we already know the index of it, so that's not a way of doing it, right? So what's the solution then? Well, the solution is to use a different function, different array method that is called find index, and that is going to, well, still find the index of some element, but not by using an object, not by sending in an object and comparing it with a strict equals operator. No. We're actually going to pass in a lambda or a callback function. So here we can specify callback function is going to be called for every single element. And this find index is going to call for every single one of each. And it's going to say, okay, are you actually going to return true inside this callback function? Yes, no. If not, then it's not that the element that we're searching for. If it's yes, then it's going to return the index of that. So if I say here, if element, return element dot name is test2. If that's the case, now you'll notice we get 1 without actually creating a new object, without actually having to know the index prior to this. If you want a more in-depth look at the find and find index array methods, you can take a look up top. I have made a video on those as well. And that's about it with the indexOf array method. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions, do leave them in the comments below or on our Discord server. You have an invitation in the description. If not, well, thanks for watching and see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.